This is Lizzy Jane, and you're tuning into my podcast where music meets conversation. Hey guys, what's up? It's Lizzy Jane. You are tuning into the Lizzy Jane podcast. Today I have Father Funk on to talk about his upcoming LP. It is called Funk the System. I'm so excited to have him here today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course. I'm super glad we finally got to get together. And as you were just saying, you are up in Canada right now, and you've been there for like the last 3 years, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, I love it.
So exciting. And before that, you were in the UK. So for people listening, tell us about like the birth of the Father Funk project. I've been a fan of your music for a really long time, but for anybody listening who may be discovering you for the first time, tell us a little bit about the project.
Where do I start? Yeah, I mean, it's been going on for so long now. I mean, yeah, pretty much my whole adult life since I was about 18, somewhere around there. I've been doing the Father Funk thing. I've never had like a full-time job. I've just been doing this the whole time. It kind of just started as a fun thing, pretty much as a joke, really. Like, as you can probably tell by the name, I wasn't really intending for it to go anywhere. And yeah, initially it was kind of very influenced by like the kind of Fractal Forest ghetto funk sound from the Shambhala Festival here in Canada. And then sort of over lockdown, I started experimenting a bit more with like going back to my, like when I really started making music, it was all like very influenced by Rusko and like early dubstep. And yeah, during lockdown, I just kind of experimented with more of that kind of sound, sort of fusing that with the Father Funk thing, a bit more on sort of Grizz direction. And then that sort of really started to kick off. And that's kind of the trajectory I'm on now, is like the more kind of bass music kind of vibes. But I still kind of bring in a lot of the influences of my early sound, which is a lot of hip hop and funk and soul and reggae, and basically just a big mishmash of all the things that I love. And that's kind of what I tried to do with this album, really, just kind of really define, you know, where I'm at in my musical journey, and just celebrate all the things that I love about music, you know?
I think that's so exciting because it takes an artist a while to get to that point where you can take from all of your different influences and all of your musical background and say, how am I going to combine everything not only into my sound, but like a way to be innovative, fresh, move it forward, and be somewhat relevant in like the state of bass or whatever genre you're like existing in. And you can so hear that in the Funk the System LP. Like I am a huge jazz head. I was like classically trained.
Awesome. Yeah, me too.
Fun. Okay, lovely. That's incredible. And I feel like, again, like I've listened to your music for such a long time, and you've always sat in so many different like pockets underneath the electronic bass umbrella. But seeing the records, collaborating with like Zoska, Prob Cause, the recent single that you just released with Death 3, I'm like, there's some like really cool, funky, almost like syncopation time signature vibes in some of them that I don't feel like we're getting in a lot of bass music, but still has that underground, what you said, Rusko, kind of Casbah, new age Grizz vibe. So it's like a really enjoyable listen with like a lot of fun moments and plays on like even like old records. Like there's some reggae vibes, like they're like what you said, like hip hop taking like the OG Father Funk sound and just like putting it into this massive body of work. When did you realize it was time to, you know, start on the journey of writing this album?
I mean, a lot of the tracks have been in the works for a while. Certainly Trippy Road, the first single, me and Zoska started working on that, I think maybe 2-3 years ago, but it wasn't really until very early this year, literally January this year, I actually hired out my friend's parents' cabin on the island of Maine, a little tiny island off of Vancouver Island, Mayne, Maine Island. And yeah, I just spent a week just like locked in this cabin, sort of coming up with ideas for the album. And a lot of it just came from, yeah, I was just really happy with the music I was making. I kind of felt like I'd finally sort of like landed on this sound that I was really stoked on, and my production was getting a lot better. And I just, as much as like making an album isn't really the best move these days, like marketing wise and whatnot, I just really wanted to kind of like put a stamp in the ground of like where I'm at sonically, and like where my music and also it just kind of allows me to go a little bit more broad with like the kind of sounds that I'm making on the record. Like there's a track, Lights Out, the kind of like R&B hip hoppy one on there that's been sat in my library for like probably 6 or 7 years. It's not really had the right moment to come out. It's not really like a single, certainly not in the sort of stuff I'm putting out often at the moment. It kind of makes more sense in like an album project. So yeah, it was just an excuse to kind of like go a little bit deeper as well. As kind of like, yeah, drawing a line in the sand as to where I'm at.
I think that's like, again, like writing an album, I feel like is just this brick of your project that says exactly like this is either an era that's not going anywhere for a really long time, or I found myself feeling so confident in my sound currently that I want to expand and really take listeners on a journey. And it's so crazy because I just released, Sippy just released her debut album out on Deadbeats, and I've had this conversation with so many like bass-driven artists, and I tweet about it. I put it on threads and shit all the time, where I'm like, the music industry, the music business, the social media algorithms are like, albums are stupid. Don't waste your time. The effort, the expenditure, the attention of the common consumer now is just not there. But man, have we gotten some fucking kick-ass albums this year. Like I literally feel like Nina Geraci, Skybreak, Sippy, Enzo and Bluka. Like I'm thinking about like more experimental bass centric artists, and I'm just like, Liney just dropped his fucking debut album. The albums are it, and I feel like it allows an artist to be an artist, and I wish like music industry heads just kind of let artists do what they want sometimes, because I feel like the intuition of an artist is really what fans like want before they know they want it. And I feel like these albums are so like stimulating and exciting for like bass music fans. Like with the current state of where bass music is, so much of it is like saturated and recycled that I only feel like the way to move forward is to like really, what you said, kind of like draw your line in the sand and say like, this is me, this is my vision, these are my visuals, this is how I want to bring the LP, the album to life, and this is like what I'm gonna do. And that's what I like hear in your album, genuinely.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I'm also just a big album guy as well. Like that is what I listen to. I don't listen to playlists. I don't listen to singles. I don't queue up shit on my Spotify. Like I listen to albums from front to back all day long, no matter what genre it is, whether that's, jazz, reggae, punk rock, metal, electronic. Like I like listening to stuff in the context of a bigger body of work. And if I discover an artist that I'm really into, the first thing I'm going to do is find like what's their like quintessential album or what's their debut album, and I'll listen through that. And like that's what helps me understand an artist and get into an artist. I don't think you can truly have that meaningful connection with an artist without the context of an album. I think you end up you might think you like an artist because you hear one song and then you hear the record and you don't, or vice versa. It's like maybe like in isolation the song doesn't really connect with you, but then in the context of the album it really does. And I think that's what separates a really great artist from like an okay artist. Like all the bands that I love now that I came across when I was a kid, the reason they had staying power for me is because they can write albums, and if you can write good albums, then you're a really good musician.
I fully agree with you. I just had a conversation with Maddie O'Neill, who like we endlessly talk about the social media game versus do you want to do this short term, long term? Every artist has a different goal and mindset, especially in like the virality age of where we're at. I was having a conversation with somebody the other day, and they're like, artists have always had to sell themselves in the shittiest way, most uncomfortable way possible. And right now that shitty, uncomfortable way is just social media. And it's like such a cool tool, but for the artist that is true within themselves, like I want to lock myself in my cave and create and draw out this really like universe world driven vision and cohesive record. It's really hard to put that into 15-second, 30-second snippets a lot of the times. And same thing, I come from like the world of metal, heavy rock, post-hardcore, and the albums are what I connected with. I think that was the biggest thing for me when like transitioning into dance music. I feel like if you come from hip hop, R&B, reggae, like when I came into dance music, I was like, okay, what are like the albums? And that's when I got into like Nero and like early Porter Robinson, because I was looking for actual tangible, show me what you're all about as an artist. And a lot of times, you know, you can have an artist that exists in dance music for over a decade without an album, which is crazy, And why do you think that is? Why do you think like dance music is so different?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just, it's not really what we're expected to do these days. Like even pop artists now, like they'll often do like a song a month or a song even every 2 weeks. You know, some of them, certainly the more independent artists. But yeah, I think it's just, I don't know. I don't think people have the same approach. I said that I still listen to albums. I don't know many people that still listen to albums, really. Certainly in the electronic world, everyone's so like cottoned onto like what's new, and they're probably more interested in finding a new song that week than they are listening to an album that came out last year. And maybe I'm out of touch, you know, for not like feeding those people what they want, but yeah, like you say, I come from the history of albums, and I was very influenced by a lot of the like early Chase and Status albums. Were kind of one of the blueprint almost for this, where it's like every song on those early like first couple of Chase and Status albums, they're all songs. It's songwriting, and each track has a very specific flavor and vibe, and they all have very catchy vocals. And it's not just a collection of bangers that happen to be made around the same time. It's like you can tell it's been thought out, and it has each track's almost like it has like this radio hit pop energy, but it's still like something you would play in the club. And that's definitely what I was trying to go for with this. I don't know how well I nailed that, but that was definitely what I had in mind, was just trying to make this body of work that was like, yeah, kind of really showcase a lot of different sounds, but was still like music and songs that you could listen to. Because, you know, like the biggest drum and bass song or dubstep song from this year is probably not necessarily something you'll listen to in like 2 years. Whereas like if you write an album which is like songwriting and it's a little bit more meaningful, then it is something that you'll listen to for a long time. Like I say, I'm still listening to these old Chase and Status albums. I'd never play them in my sets because the production is a bit dated, but the songs are still good. And that's the part that's timeless, you know, is the songwriting, not the production.
Fully agree with that. That's gonna be like my clip. Like sometimes when people talk to me, I'm like, oh, that's like the clip, because you're so right. It's kind of like a wine aging over time. We unfortunately, a lot of artists, just the way that I think people approach things. Again, I'm going to blame social media. I'll blame social media until the day I die. But it's like the quick moment of whether it's a sample from the 90s or the early 2000s or the hot remix bootleg at the time that everybody's trying to kind of get on and make that 30-second before they've even finished the record. Whereas an album can sit and literally the smallest thing can happen, and it can bring attention to an album from 10 years ago, bring attention to an album from 5 years ago. And like, it really can grow over time. And that's how I feel like, I mean, I've seen it with, and this is such a different analogy, but I've even seen it like with the podcast, where like I'll put out an episode sometimes and it does fine, but then I'll go back a year later, I'll go back a year and a half later, and I was like, oh, someone shared that along the way that really got people interested in this. And I feel like with a collection of songs that have intention and purpose, and like a roadblock from the intro to single 1, 2, 3, all the way to the interlude, the outro, you know, whatever it may be, it has such a higher potential and like higher overhead to connect with somebody who may not know who you are or like grow over time. I fully agree with the Chase and Status stuff. And it's so wild because I saw them in Denver a few weeks ago. And God, I'm gonna hit myself in the head if I fuck this single name up. But I think the single was Eastbridge. I'm trying to think. It's a bass. It's like one of the OG, like a Mal K, Caspa, like all of these guys still play this in their sets, and they dropped it. And I was like, God, I never would have thought they were gonna drop this 2003 single from their album in their set, and it just mixed in fluidly. It was just gorgeous, and I was just like, This is so sick. And this was like what the power of having an album that like grows over time can do. And like when it comes to your creative process, finding your sound, obviously like sounds evolve over time. How did you approach creating for this album? I know you have a ton of collaborators, but do you follow kind of like a set process or method that you've kind of fine-tuned over time, or is every record always different?
I mean, I have like a project template set up in Ableton. So in terms of like my routing and stuff and like the way that I build my projects, it's quite similar, but it's not, the process can definitely vary every time. And one thing that definitely makes this really stand out, I got kind of nerdy with it and made like a spreadsheet of like what would be the perfect Father Funk album and like just listed a bunch of conceptual ideas. So for example, Rage Again, which came out last week, I was like, drum step meets Rage Against the Machine, political vocal featuring Def 3. That was kind of like the concept before I'd even like started writing or anything. That was the idea. And another track on the album called Jazzercise. So that was like, yeah, like a jazz song meets dubstep. And like, I wanted to have this real kind of like nice combination of the two. And like, so basically just a list of concepts like this. And that's kind of what I went into that week on the island with, was like all these concepts. And actually, probably like most of the goodest, like the best songs on the record came from that week that I like had, like, even though it's taken me all year to finish, the bulk of it came out in that first week because I was just like purely just full of all these ideas. And I think sometimes if you kind of just sit there and try and just like write a song, it's like it can take forever and nothing special really happens. But I think when you have a bit of a kind of like concept in mind and like a bit more of a like strong idea to go towards, even if you don't end up realizing that idea, it just gives you like a real strong direction to go with. And I think certainly with an album, it's important that you have these different touch points, right? Because if I'm just trying to write 10 Father Funk bangers, it's like, it's probably all going to end up sounding the same. And it's going to be really hard for me to come up with something new every time. Whereas if each track on the album has a really specific kind of concept behind it, it kind of writes itself, you know, and it keeps it interesting all throughout too. And yeah, that's kind of what I was going for, really.
It's really like you have a roadmap. You're kind of like, all right,
Yeah.
I've conceptualized everything. I don't know like what it is when it comes to the creators, like whether you're doing like multimedia facets or you're a producer, whatever it is. I feel like in every other discipline of my life, when you have like goals or if you have like a big project or something you need to get done, there's always like a game plan. Like there's a set of like, this week we got to get this done. These are the deadlines. This is that. But for some reason, when it comes to like creative endeavors, a lot of people just go, it's going to come when it comes to me. And I don't always agree with that or think that's like the most foolproof method because like the intention matters. Like what you said, it's like you have a beautiful cabin and an awesome, serene, secluded, this is my music time, focus time place. But if you go in there with no preparation, it's really, really hard, I think, to get ideas like fully developed. And then even then going in with a plan, I feel like in the first, and tell me how this goes for you, but in the first like 30 minutes to 2 hours, I know if what I'm writing on, like writing about, you know, whether we're doing songwriting or we're doing beat making, producing, I know if it's worth it. Does that kind of make sense? Like, does that ever happen for you?
No, totally. I mean, there's some songs like I mentioned, Trippy Road, I've been working on for quite a long time. That was definitely something where it was like a bit of the grind of like, I know that I need to squeeze more out of this and I'm going to really work on it. Whereas a lot of the stuff, like I mentioned in that cabin, it was like, I was making like 2 or 3 songs a day. And like, obviously I've done a lot of mixing since then, but yeah, the main bulk of the songwriting was all written in like a very short space of time. And yeah, if it's not clicking for me in that short space of time, I'm like, fuck this, move on, let's try the next thing. Because if the idea isn't strong enough to carry it, you know, to be like pretty much written in the first couple of hours, it's probably never going to be that good, you know. So that's kind of my approach anyway. And also, I mean, I'm kind of on the fence. I could do a bit of both, where it's like I do kind of need to hit inspiration to have a really good session like that, but it kind of, yeah, like, but being prepared to be inspired is kind of the way. So it's like, yeah, I have all these concepts. I mean, for example, I have a huge list of like remix ideas and concepts for songs like this. It doesn't necessarily mean that on any given day I could just choose one of those and it's going to work. It's more like, you know, there's a lot of them I know it's going to be great, but I'm waiting for the right day where I'm in the right headspace for it to work, you know. So that's kind of a lot of it too, where it's like be over prepared so that when the time comes, it's all going to click, you know. So yeah, it's a little bit of both, but I definitely think, yeah, waiting for inspiration to strike is definitely pretty overrated. And I think there's a Stephen King quote where he's like, I only write when I'm inspired. It just happens to be at 8 a.m. every single morning, because he gets up and sits at his desk and writes every day, you know. And he's written an insane amount of books. And that doesn't necessarily work for everyone, but I do think just getting down and doing it is the way to go. And yeah, since having like a studio space, this is a studio that I hire out. I was in a different spot last year when I first moved here. And yeah, having to be here at set times, I can't wait for inspiration to strike because that's when I'm in the studio. And then yeah, lo and behold, by showing up every day at the same time, things happen. And I think having that limited time in the studio too means, okay, I'm here for 4 hours. I have to smash out a bunch of stuff. I can't just like sit around at home in my home studio and hope things are going to happen. It's like I actually have to make stuff happen when I'm there. And that definitely made me so much more productive, even though I'm probably spending less time producing than I was back in the UK when I had all my stuff in my own house. I'm just a lot more disciplined now.
I feel like it's kind of like the pressure makes diamonds analogy a little bit sometimes, where when you're able to, I have been on an endeavor for managing and understanding and conquering time management, because I feel like as an artist, that is so fucking important. Just as a person, as you grow up, understanding how to manage your time, do things in a smart way, not necessarily like a hard way, and also understanding that we are pretty much entrepreneurs at this point that have to wear multiple different hats in order to keep the train moving. Having that limited amount of time, but also, like, I love that Stephen King quote, showing up every day is going to give you that window of opportunity to say not every day is going to be a gold star day, but the more days that I do, the more gold star days like I'm going to have, like the more great ideas I'm going to say, this is great for a collab. Let me get a vocalist. This is going to be a single. But I'm a huge like conceptual, probably to my own demise person, where I love writing everything down, universe building, whether you're doing an EP, an album, some brand work, a single, like that is so, I think, important for an artist to like understand who they are. And I feel like the Father Funk like brand is like really trippy, really cool, really fun, can like sit in different pockets of sounds, obviously. And I think lately I've been talking to a lot of like managers and people who do like brand development. And I feel like it's not so much the sound as like who your brand is, as it is to like how you like represent yourself or your voice or your image. So like that can change, because we're seeing people now for the first time, like ever, rightfully so, really like jump different genre boats and do it quite nicely. Whereas I feel like a decade ago, you really, if you hit it on a certain pocketed niche sound, you better hammer that home type of deal, because everybody kind of wants the same thing over and over. And now you're like seeing a lot of expansion. And as you like reflect on Father Funk project, what do you say like played a role in like you identifying and communicating to like your fans and now your community of supporters, like who you are, what you're all about, and also like tying in the music? I know that's kind of an extensive question.
Yeah, I don't really know. Like, I don't really put that much thought into it. I think I've always just made the music that I love and wanted to hear. But I think, as much as that sounds like I've not put a lot of thought into it, it's also that in itself is a style, because I have my own taste, right? And I think if people are on board with me and what I do, luckily they tend to like everything I do. There's definitely people that prefer my old stuff and shit like that, but it's not like there's been a huge, I expected more of a backlash when I started doing more of the dubsteppy stuff. And really there's been nothing but support and growth since then. And yeah, I think it just comes from being true to myself. I think if I'd changed my sound just to make more money or something like that, or I was like trying to like just follow the trend, it would obviously be inauthentic and people probably wouldn't connect to it. But since I'm just doing what I love still, I think people are always going to be into that. And also, having a name like Father Funk, it does have certain limitations. I have to be fit within at least a certain bracket. And I think a lot of it as well, my music it's probably more fun than it is funky, really. I think that's probably one of the most defining things, is just the kind of like fun side of it. And I think no matter how hard I try to be serious, I'm just not that serious of a guy. Like, all the music I make has to have a little bit of a fun, cheeky element to it. And I think that connects with people as well on quite a deep level. And yeah, maybe more so than the actual genre boundaries themselves. I mean, and sure, it probably would be more of a sensible idea to stick to one sound, but I just couldn't do that. I'm just into everything, and I would just get bored, and I think I feel very lucky to be, I might look at an artist like I don't know, some of the bigger dubstep guys or whatever, or some of the big drum and bass stars. It's like you might look at that and think they're more successful, but it's like, are you successful if you have to just make the same shit for the rest of your life? Like, I don't want to be that guy. So in a lot of ways, I think I have more success than them by being, I have a career off the back of literally doing whatever the hell I want, which is pretty awesome. And I'm pretty grateful that I have fans that support me in that, because I don't feel boxed in at all. And I feel very excited about the direction it's going. And yeah, I'm just stoked to make more music. Like, I couldn't be more happy to finish this album just so I can get on to the next thing. I'm not like, oh, I can't be bothered to make music. I'm just like so stoked to get back to it now.
That's so like liberating too, because I feel like that's like an artist's goal. Like that's an artist's dream, is for me never to get tired of the art that I'm making or like box myself into a niche subgenre that it's going to be impossible to crawl out of. And I think that as an artist, identifying what like success looks like to you is very unique to yourself, versus saying, well, there's only one definition of success and what is it and where is it? And I am in the absolute same boat as you. I mean, I went through it. I made heavy dubstep for 4 or 5 years, and I was just like, I am not fucking feeling this like anymore. Like, I want to sing. I want to be a little bit more creative, like write more meaningful, lasting potential records. And I was just like, I have to do that or I'm not going to see a long-term like vision for myself, which is like a really scary thing that I think a lot of artists in dance music go through. But the fans now, I feel like, are so ready. And the fact that like your fan base has been just supportive of those transitions from the beginning, it really tells you that like, one, they fuck with you as a person, they fuck with you as an individual. Because I feel like if like an individual is like kind of transparent and you can really tell that they love it, like in the reasons why they're doing it, you have a fan base who's so much more versatile and flexible in like what they're willing to support you of and like in your endeavors. And I also feel like you have a really awesome fan base that is full of like super fans. I've been seeing this conversation a lot lately where it's like, would you rather have the 100,000 transient fans and the 50,000 followers that kind of like you, but like also don't really know who you are? Or would you rather have like the same 500 people that buy every merch drop, every single record, every single vinyl? And I feel like you've been able to cultivate that over time.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's definitely just kind of just been quite natural, really. Like, I've not really put a ton of thought into it. Like, I think everyone kind of assumes that I have this very like strong vision for the project, and maybe I do a bit more now, but I've definitely kind of like just stumbled across the whole thing, like all like my image, for example. People always assume that I like dress up to play my sets, and this is literally just what I wear. Like, I'm like, the pink hair and the funky hats or whatever, whatever you want to call it, and the mustache. Like, none of this was thought about as like a brand thing or whatever. I think a lot of people try really hard to like have a thing, right? And it just feels so weird and phony. But yeah, I've always just been expressing myself and just trying to be true to myself. And I guess I have my parents to thank for instilling whatever that is in me, that I've always had the confidence to be myself. Even way back to being super young, I always felt like an outcast. And in a lot of ways, I was very kind of like proud of that, like I didn't want to be like everyone else. And I think almost to like a fault where I was a bit hipstery, where like, if something was too cool, I wasn't into it. Whereas I'm a little bit more okay with being into stuff that other people are into now. But yeah, I've always just been doing my thing. And I think that's something that I really want to instill in others too, because I think a lot of people aren't given the permission to be who they really are. I remember having this moment with this young lad at a festival, and he was like, he asked me quite like, literally like, why do you dress like this? Like, you could tell he really meant the question. It's like, why are you dressed like that? And I was like, because I want to. And like, he literally blew his mind. He was like, what? Like, I can just wear whatever I want. I can just be whoever I want. And then next time I saw him a year later at the same festival, he was all dressed up with like a big gold chain and a funky shirt and all this stuff. And I was like, fuck yeah. And I could get on my high horse about this guy, like maybe following the crowd, but it's like, some people just don't know, like, some people need to be given permission to be themselves, which is, it's quite sad, really. And I'm obviously lucky to be in a position where I'm not like that, but that comes from a place of privilege, and I'm very grateful to have it.
Shout out parents, honestly. It really comes from the ground up. Like, I was very lucky too. And like over time, I've just met so many people. I think it's really a crazy topic when you like meet people and they're like, wait, you like followed your dreams. Like you made it happen. And it's like such like a foreign concept to them because they were never in an environment that was like properly fostering of their potential and saying like, I mean, I went to traditional uni to be a fucking person on the Hill in DC for political science and international affairs. And 6 months into that, I went, what am I doing? I've done music my whole life. Why am I not doing that? This is a career. This is an industry. How do we like make this happen? But I had the support to say, go for it, like go and do it. Like, and I think it's cliche, but it's like if you love what you do, you're never going to work a day in your life. There are parts of anything, whether you're living your wildest dreams, that make you feel like it is a job sometimes. And we are very privileged to have that support. But I think it's also like, I'm really glad you just brought that up because I think artists in this like crazy social media rat race game we're in, they do forget the influence and impact that they can have on other people. Like whether it's a moment in a festival or it's a certain record you're releasing or you blow the fuck up on social media and now you've got thousands of people looking at your stuff all the time. Like we have such a landscape to encourage people to follow their dreams, to not give up, to work hard, to be able to express themselves. And it's very awesome that, you know, you've been able to embody that, you know, despite the current climate we're in the music industry, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely take it very seriously. You know, I think I didn't necessarily ask for this position that I'm in of, I don't know if you want to call it a position of power or influence or whatever, but I definitely take it very seriously. And I think it's important that I have a positive impact on the world and the people around me. And I mean, a lot of this comes from like growing up in punk rock as well, you know, where it's just about like being yourself and like fuck everyone else basically. And like just ultimate self-expression. And that's something that it kind of frustrates me and makes me angry to see that being taken away from electronic music. Because it used to be all about that. Electronic music was born out of rebellion. You know, people making house music out of drum machines that were invented for home organs. You know, whereas now it's like people just recycling the same bullshit and copying each other just for some social media clout. It's like we've come so far from what it's supposed to be about. And I think I'm very much a champion of like staying true to that. And like, yeah, it's not supposed to be for, well, I shouldn't be a gatekeeper, but electronic music was never supposed to be for the cool kids, you know?
No, it wasn't. I mean, I feel like even when I started going to raves, like it was still kind of like misfitty, a bunch of people that don't really fit in, that kind of just like have this community of everyone who accepts everybody. And you have your pros and cons with everything. It's great that it's grown to reach this many people. With that, you have a lot of people who don't understand where it's come from and what it's really about. So you have this like kind of teeter-totter that's, wow, my music could reach so many more people than it's ever reached before. And I could play festivals that have 50,000 to 150,000 attendees, you know, multiple times in the span of a summer. But also, how are my fans treating each other? Who is my fan base? Do they really care? Like, you can't choose your fans, you know, like there's all of these different variables that go into having like a meaningful, impactful project full of people who really understand where dance music comes from and what it's supposed to be about. And I think we're lucky that there are enough fans and that there are enough artists still around that understand these foundations and how important it is to practice these things, whether it is on social media, it is at raves, whatever it may be, that I think we're still okay. 10 years from now, I'm not sure where we'll be, but I think we're doing okay now. And I think you mentioning like you come from like the punk scene, talking about the single with Death 3, that was very, you kind of mentioned it before, like political lyrics, kind of like angsty meets Rage Against the Machine meets some like high BPM shit. Let's talk about that record, because I felt like for me, that was probably one of my favorite and also one of the more unique records off of the LP.
Yeah, I'm stoked on that one. Like I say, it definitely kind of like came out of this conceptual idea initially. But it was definitely, you know, more, it's definitely more than that. It's not just a concept. It's like, you know, those lyrics are very much like how a lot of us are feeling right now. And Death 3 was the perfect guy for that. Like, you know, we have these conversations all the time, you know, about the state of the world, the state of the music industry. And yeah, we both come from the punk scene. You know, we have a lot of mutual band loves like Rancid and NoFX, and obviously Rage Against the Machine. I think, you know, a lot of those bands, it's not even so much about politics, it's their morals are very clear in their music, you know. And I feel like, you know, as much as I don't want to be super divisive and like super on one side or the other with it, like I still felt like, you know, making a song that has a bit of meaning and some rage and some anger behind it just felt like it needed to happen. And like the more we kind of talked about it and worked on it, the more I was like, why doesn't this exist? You know, like it's such a perfect combination. Like I think, you know, I've had people always say to me a lot, like, oh yeah, you should do like a remix of a punk song or this or that. And it's like, I love all that music, but it's like I could never see that really working. And like I love all that music so much that it would just be like blasphemy to me. You know, like if I hear like a Nirvana remix, I'm like, this is absolutely fucking god awful. But yeah, this song, you know, it's kind of, because we made it ourselves and it's original and we kind of like, it came from the same place, kind of like the same mindset, you know what I mean? It's not just like sampling and making a cheesy remix of a song everyone knows. It's kind of like, it's born out of the same well of creativity in the same headspace. I think that's what kind of makes it have a little bit more staying power and feel a little bit more relevant and not just kind of like a cop-out kind of throwaway song. So I'm super, super proud of that one. And I'm really happy with that, like how it turned out. And yeah, Danny's really happy with it too. I'm pretty sure he said it's like his favorite song he's ever worked on. And yeah, I mean, we wrote it obviously like quite a while ago now, probably like, I don't know, April or May. And the world was a bit of a shithole then, and it still is now. We were like, oh, we need to get this out soon because it's not going to be relevant in 6 months. But it's like it couldn't have got more and more relevant every day, really. So yeah, it's come out at a good time, and I'm definitely very proud of it.
Yeah, it's definitely me listening through. I mean, it's interesting because the album, when everybody has a chance to listen to it, they will know, has this contrast throughout it, because like of what you said earlier, like there's so many like fun records that are like feel good, like almost like happy, like it almost sounds like some of them were written in like major key records that are just like really great. I heard it at like a dubstep festival like Lost Lands, or if I heard it in like, you know, kind of in the middle of like two heavy artists, I'd be like, this is so refreshing to hear live. And I feel like the whole aura would be stepped up. And then you do have singles like that off the album that are very serious and like angsty and have like this really, really, really intentional meaning behind it, which is the beauty of an album, because you can kind of do a little bit of everything, but it's cool to see the contrast so directly throughout the singles. And I would also love to talk about Trippy Road with Prob Cause. Shout out Zoska, also a bass fusion jazz producer. She's awesome. She's super talented. I'm super excited to see her starting to get the recognition that she deserves. And also Prob Cause, I just met him a few weeks ago. He's the fucking shit. Obviously, we all know, we love him from the Grizz Project. He's doing his own DJ sets now. He's done features with so many artists and made like really, really, really awesome records. How did this track come to be?
Yeah, so I can't remember if it was 2 years or 3 years ago, but yeah, a couple of years ago anyway, I came across Oscar, and as I do, if I come across anyone else who's also doing the kind of funky dubstep stuff, there's not many of us, so I usually reach out straight away and connect and you know, maybe talk about doing a track together or whatever. And yeah, we started cooking it way, way, way back when. I was already playing it in every show in early 2024 when I was on tour with the Floozies, my first US tour, a lot of my first US shows. This was before I even had a vocal on it. And it was already smashing it, but I just knew that it had potential to be something really great. You know, it was getting a really good response. It felt like a real step forward in terms of my sound. And I don't know, it was just a really good track. And I just knew it could be something special. And I was kind of like, I won't say who it was, but there's a friend of mine who I was talking about doing the vocal with, and he was kind of like on the fence about it because he's like part of a band. And he's like, oh, I don't know if this is my thing or whatever. And I was like, I just knew it needed this perfect vocal. And I kind of had this idea of more of like a kind of like Cardi B, like female vocal, maybe that's kind of like quite high pitched, kind of trappy vibes. And then, yeah, one day it just dawned on me, and I'm like, Prob Cause, obviously this is the perfect guy to ask. And I think I hadn't even thought about it until he like followed me or replied to one of my stories or some shit. I didn't even realize I was on his radar, you know, like I never assumed that he would be up for working with me. So it never really crossed my mind. And then when I connected with him and I was like, oh, I actually have this song which would be perfect. And he was like, yep, all over it. And within a month or whatever, he'd sent me over all these tracks and just done a wicked job. And yeah, it just sounded awesome straight away. And I was like, okay, we got it. We finally nailed it. And then it was just a matter of kind of massaging the track to fit it in there. I ended up changing the arrangement quite a lot. And I think because what took me so long to get it finished is because it was already like a really fleshed out song, right? So then to change it into a vocal song required a lot of kind of like changing the arrangement and the mix down and making space for his vocal and all this stuff. And because it was going back and forth between me and Zaska a lot too, it was just like, there was just so much work that went into it, as opposed to, if it's just a track I make on my own and it's kind of, I'm not introducing any new elements within the first few hours, it's a lot easier just to get it finished quick. But this was like, yeah, it took a bit more time. And also I just felt like it deserved that kind of attention. I knew it was something special and it was the obvious choice for the first single as well.
That's so exciting. Yeah, it's definitely like a banger. Like I would say it's like a traditional like father funk banger, and I'm a huge fan of Prob Cause, so I felt like that was like a trio that was very well matched up and deserved and like fits in, I'm sure, so many people's like sets that fall kind of along this like bass funk lane that's like very, very kind of like fun and uplifting, which is always nice for bass music. I feel like a lot of our shit is scary and dark and just like ever longing, and then there's like this beautiful fun side to it too. And that's what I've definitely loved about kind of exploring drum and bass more. I feel like in the lane of drum and bass, like there's so many subgenres, just like bass music, just like dubstep, that are really exciting to kind of dive into and get to learn about all of the artists that live in that little sub pocket. And with like the Funk the System LP, like thinking through the whole record, is there anything that you can think of that you would like to tell fans who are listening about the record before maybe they listen to it, or maybe they after had a few listens to it? Like any Easter eggs or your favorite record that you worked on, maybe a favorite collaborator besides the two singles, anything?
Man, I mean, for starters, listen with an open mind. It's not, every track's pretty different. It's a journey. Like, make sure you listen to it all the way through. Don't just like cherry pick your favorite songs or whatever's got the most plays. Like, I would definitely hope for people to listen to it from start to finish for the first listen. That's the way it was meant to be enjoyed. And I've made sure that there's no filler. It's all killer, no filler. And yeah, I guess, I mean, my favorite track is probably Jazzercise, which I kind of mentioned earlier. Just because it was, I don't know, like I said, a lot of the tracks came out of these concepts, and that was one of the strongest ones, and I feel like I really nailed it. And yeah, I'm just really happy with how sort of huge it sounds, and I don't know, that song just feels good to me. And had a few guys help out with various bits of instrumentation on it, like some live flute, and there's like a cool bit of trumpet on the outro. And yeah, I'm a big jazz guy, and it's we mentioned earlier about being classically trained. Like, I've tried learning jazz before, like jazz piano and stuff. I can sort of like figure that stuff out, but I'm definitely not a jazzer by any means. So if I ever like manage to pull something off that sounds like actual jazz music, I feel really proud of myself. So that's probably why that's one of my favorite tracks. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to give people too much of a preconception of what it's about, because at the end of the day, everyone's going to connect with something different on the album, and hopefully there's something for everyone on there. And that's one thing that I really enjoy about kind of like experimenting with all these different sounds, and especially like a big body of work like that. There's always, maybe the track that I think people aren't going to like as much is someone's favorite song I've ever done, or the track I didn't think was going to get the most plays ends up being the most played, or whatever. Like, I think it's always really exciting to see, like, once it comes out, like how my expectations of certain songs are subverted, or how people connect to things I didn't think they would connect to, or whatever. So I don't think I want to put too many ideas in people's heads. I think just go listen with an open mind, and check the whole thing out from start to finish if you can.
I love it. And I think that's what's so exciting about an album, and just you as an artist, I'm sure having certain intentions with the singles, but anybody can really interpret it like interpretate them how they, want, and relate to them how they want, and kind of make their own memories to them. And that's what I think is so, so, so exciting about writing like a really large body of work versus just a single, because there's just like this endless universe where everybody can have a different favorite song and everybody can find their different favorite moments throughout the album. And it's such a fun listen through. I was listening to it and I was just like, it started kind of going on repeat, and then I listened to it again, and then I listened to it again. And I feel like there's all of these little things that, like, there's these really cool moments that I think your fans are going to really enjoy attaching themselves to. And the sound design is super funky, of course, and fun and crazy. But then you've got some really awesome, like, standalone records that I think are like really meaningful and powerful and impactful. So it's kind of got, like what you just said, a little bit of everything for everybody who, make like a little bit of jazz influenced stuff or reggae or hip hop or just like feel good, funky bass music. And I know that you are on tour, you're going on tour. Tell me about the tour that's happening.
Yeah, I'm on tour right now. Just kind of started at the beginning of October. I don't know when this is going to get aired, but yeah, I think I've done maybe 3 or 4 shows as part of the tour so far. Got a few more coming up. I'm in Reno next week. This weekend I'm in Toronto and Winnipeg. I imagine this is probably going to air after that though. And then I'm really excited for my first Denver headline show at Cervantes at the Side. I think that's December 18th, maybe. Yeah, that's one that I'm really, really excited for. I was lucky enough to play at Mission Ballroom with the Floozies at that tour I mentioned in 2024, and it was awesome. And I was like, just such a dope crowd, and it felt really special being there. So definitely a little bit nervous because I'm not really sure what to expect in terms of like a turnout. But it's always been like one of my, if not my top played city on Spotify. So I'm hoping people are gonna turn up. But yeah, I'm really excited.
That show. I was at Lizzy's show. Yeah, that was a very, very fun show. And I feel like Cervantes is that the other side is such a fun room. Turnout's gonna be great. I think that a lot of like there's a lot of people I've met in Denver that Cervantes is like their favorite venue. It's just like this like kind of independent feeling, good vibes. You could throw like, I've seen so many different artists there. I've seen bass artists. I've seen like Pepper. I've seen hip hop acts. Yeah. Like those 2 rooms are like have a lot of soul to them. And I feel like that's the perfect spot for you to go back and do a headline. And I definitely think it's going to be a killer turnout. I know I got that from Noah today. He's like, we just added Cervantes. And I was like, oh, sick. That's fucking awesome. So that'll be like a great stop to the tour. And then is there anything else that you want to maybe share with us that you're excited for? Obviously the album's huge. I feel guilty asking that question, but anything else?
Yeah, not particularly. Like I say, just really excited to get this album out there. And I mean, yeah, I've had my US visa for coming up on a year now, but I've still got another 2 years left on that. So I'm definitely gonna be focusing a lot more on the US stuff. And I'm just really excited to do, more of that, obviously the Denver thing and whatever comes next, really. Hopefully some festivals in the summer. I've not really done the proper festival circuit in the US yet. So yeah, that's kind of my goal for summer 2026. But yeah, just excited to work on some more new music now. Like I said, I've been so like kind of like tunnel vision with this album for quite a while now that I'm excited to just kind of like let loose and just experiment and make a bunch of new music. And yeah, that's about it really.
The festivals are fun. You're going to have a lot of the stateside festivals are from any international artists I've talked to have been just their favorite. So they're going to love you. It's going to be a really awesome experience for you. And you're on tour now. The LP is coming out November 14th. It's called Funk the System. Fucking awesome record. Very, very excited for your fans and probably a lot of new fans to hear it. There's some awesome collaborators on there. We're going to do a little bit of this episode on my show on Insomniac Radio on that Wednesday. I think, yeah. So the LP comes out on Friday. So hopefully we're either going to do it the Wednesday before or the Wednesday after the LP comes out. We'll air about 20 minutes of this conversation on Insomniac Radio, do a full album, listen through and put little parts of the interview in between the album. And then the full conversation will come out on my podcast and everybody can kind of take a deep dive into Funk the System.
Hell yeah. Sounds good. Well, yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a blast.